whatever the world knows about India in the West, वो नहीं होता अगर विवेकानंद नहीं होते. He was a monk, but then he was an avid, non-vegetarian, right?
Wine drinker and a smoker as well, occasional smoker. Why do you think that J.C. Bose deserves to be remembered and cherished by Indians?
He was the first person in modern India who created science as a vocation. He was the first Indian to be the science professor in a college. Before that, science used to be taught only by whites. Jagadish Chandra Bose and Nikola Tesla and few other people are officially credited with the invention of wireless. One of the earliest functioning wireless system was set up by Jagadish Chandra Bose in Calcutta. I'm an electronics engineer. I did electronics engineering from IIT Kharagpur. 30 years I've been working in electronics engineering. I feel ashamed, right? There is not a single Indian electronic company. Unless you do something for your country, what are you doing, right?
Hello. In today's episode of Discovery of an Author, we sit down with Sudipto Das to discuss his book, Jagadish Chandra Bose. Now, if you do decide to listen or watch this entire episode on this entire podcast, then this is what you will gain from it. You'll understand about the real personality of not just Jagadish Chandra Bose, but also Swami Vivekananda and Rabindranath Tagore. You will also understand why the British rule was the reason for India's lack of innovation and also for India's economic backwardness. You will also get to know that J.C. Bose was the father of modern Indian science, that he played a very key and pivotal role in the invention of radio and also the 5G technology that we know of today. And that he also worked very hard to establish a culture of innovation in science. You'll also get to know the relationship between Rabindranath Tagore, Swami Vivekananda, J.C. Bose, and how they wanted to free India, not just economically, but also spiritually. This is a very value-driven episode and a podcast with great learnings. And if you find value in it, I request that you please share it with the friends and families, the ones you feel will really benefit from the message of this podcast. And if you really like this episode, then I request you to please like and subscribe to our channel. This is the only way in which we can grow. Thank you.
So I think whatever the world knows about India in the West, वो नहीं होता अगर विवेकानंद नहीं होते, right? So see, everybody came little later than him. Like immediately after Vivekananda, Tagore also came in the international arena because he was the first Asian, he was the first non-white to get Nobel Prize, right? Yeah. So, but then I believe the curiosity that he could arouse across the world about Hinduism and about India, right? So people say that he's a Hindu monk, but I think he's an Indian monk, right? So he's not in, and more important is that his writings, right? Athletics, he used to say that actually, जाके football खेलो गीता पढ़ने का कोई जरूरत नहीं है. That is amazing coming from a person who is being identified as a monk, right? And then again, he was a monk, right? He was a Bengali, right? And he was a monk, but then he was an avid, non-vegetarian, right?
Wine drinker and a smoker as well, occasional smoker.
Yes, smoker. Wine utna nahi pite the, but cigar. He was a chain cigar smoker, and he had high diabetes, and he used to ilish mach, which is the hilsa fish, and mutton. So before he died, almost similar to Christ's Last Supper, he called all his disciples, including Sister Nivedita. He cooked mutton in his own hand. He fed them. So that was the Last Supper, and then he washed everybody's hand. He poured water. He was extremely sick because he had very high diabetes, high cholesterol, right? So a monk who preaches Indian philosophy, Hinduism, but then again not tied to the conventional dogmas that a lot of people attach with Hinduism. Right? So no doubt that when Times of India did a survey about the most popular Indian of 20th century, actually Vivekananda came first, Gandhi came second. So that was again meaning in 2000, almost 100 years after his death, he was still so popular among the youth, right? And then unanimously he was voted the number one Indian of the century, right? So that means like उन्होंने जो बोल के गए, right? So people still found that resonating, and you, right? So like at young age, I mean, suddenly you started reading him, right? I mean, you wouldn't have gone and read somebody else's writings, right? So I mean, people still can connect with what he said, because what he said ना ये बहुत practical है. Athletics, sports is very important. जी लोगों को समझ में नहीं आता है, right? I mean, I studied in Ramakrishna Mission all my life, right? So I mean, I read about him, and not that I was very much fond of him when I was studying, because वो हो जाता है ना, like if you belong to a fraternity, you don't appreciate the significance of the fraternity. Later I realized, अरे बाप रे बाप, ये, I mean, what a personality, man. So I wrote about him also in the book, right? Because I didn't want to write only about Jagadish Bose, because I mean, Vivekananda, Tagore, all, these three people were very closely associated. I thought everybody has influenced each other in a very pragmatic manner, and people should know. I think people should know about Vivekananda also. I mean, not only Jagadish Bose. I think Vivekananda is also not that well, well talked about, or he is not. I mean, he is extremely popular. I know. I mean, he is well known, but people should know more about his writings and about his philosophy than his name, right?
No, I think what fascinated. Acha, you are right. People don't know about Vivekananda because Vivekananda has been hijacked by a particular group.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
when you hijack a particular group, you want to make him the way you think he should be, not
Exactly.
how he was, how he should be and behave. Similarly, how Krishna is hijacked by a particular group and
Exactly.
projected in a way they feel he should be. But
Even
he
Ram,
was not like
even Ram also, right?
Ram also
Ram,
to a very,
he has
very
been
big
hijacked, right? So I mean, what he stands for and what he has been made to stand for are totally different things, right? So I think
complete stock. Yeah. Same thing has happened. Same thing has happened with Vivekananda, and people don't know anything about Swami Vivekananda. And I have read a lot of books on him. Two things about him. A, obviously, his emphasis on the physical prowess. Something that Sri Aurobindo has also talked a lot. And
yes.
then Sri Aurobindo verbally said that the men of Bengal are weak. Because when he was like, what the hell is wrong with you all? तुम्हें क्या लगता है कि तुम बिना उसके तुम लड़ोगे इन लोगों से? तो when he was revolutionary, later तो he renounced everything. But उसने तो verbally बोला है कि तुम लोग क्या है ये? What the hell is wrong with you people?
Absolutely.
So his importance on physical prowess. Second, what Sudipto I feel was his genius. He was shaped by a tantric. Okay.
Yes.
Ramakrishna Paramhans was a tantric of the highest order known. I'm sure there are other people as well who are doing great work, but known. He was a Kali Upasaka. And I do acknowledge that these things are processes. Okay? So I don't denounce them. There are processes that I don't understand. Just like my father does not understand how AI works, that does not mean that AI is not real.
Correct.
Just because I don't know how Tantra works does not mean that I can denounce the science and the process behind it.
Exactly.
My analytical mind does not allow me to denounce it just because I don't understand it. Okay? So वो काली उपासक थे. I do understand that when you go into these realms, there are metaphysical experiences that do happen that again our analytical mind cannot understand. Okay?
Exactly.
He was shaped by him, but when he went to America, he did not put that in the front end. He did not utter a word about Kali. He did not utter a word about Tantra. All he spoke about was that I am inviting you, all the scientists, to do a self-analyze my religion. Come, मैं बोल रहा हूं, तुम करो, वेदास को पढ़ो, जो चीज तुम प्रूव कर सकते हो, we'll take it, जो नहीं कर सकते हो, मैं हटाऊं, we'll discard it.
Exactly.
Let's have an open inquiry. That was his genius. उसने बोला वो सब हटाओ यार. अभी ये तंत्रा है पर उसका वक्त नहीं है. अभी we need to be men. उसका वक्त बाद में आएगा. So that was his genius, which I was like, wow.
And obviously, like sort of the, generally क्या होता है, any philosopher or any anybody who is tagged under this religious reformer name, right? Generally, they themselves, become little dogmatic, and then actually they always try to, project that yahi sahi hai, baki sab galat hai, right?
Yes.
But in his case, though people call him as a Hindu reformer, but I don't think he came to reform, right? He wanted to, he wanted to help people to self-realize, right? So like, you know yourself more, you know the world more, right? So that's also like, see, he didn't come and reform anything, right? He didn't say that, chalo, you change all these things in your religion, right? He told that, like you just know, you self-realize, and then you decide what you want to do, right? So I think that's the reason why so many Western, disciples, started coming to India, and uh, they got interested in India, right? Because he aroused the curiosity about Indian culture, Indian philosophy.
In the future, you should think about writing a book on Swami Vivekananda and more such figures, because this could be a very interesting.
So I did a bit in my book on Jesse Bose, right? Because if you see actually,
Yeah. A lot of.
so Vivekananda is also, brought in blood and flesh. I didn't eulogize Vivekananda, right?
No,
If you see, actually, I treated him like a normal human being with his
absolutely.
virtues and vices, right?
And that is
His
how we
rivalry
should.
with Tagore, his anger, right? He was a human being. The moment you make somebody God, you kill that person.
Thank you for saying that. In one of my podcasts, Sudipto, you will not believe what I said. I was speaking with an ISRO scientist who had written a book on the geography of Ramayana, very scientific, very analytical, in which we demystify a lot of things. उस एपिसोड में मैंने कहा द प्रॉब्लम कम्स व्हेन यू क्रिएट राम एज भगवान. अरे
Yes,
तुम जब उसको भगवान बना दोगे, मैं बोलूंगा
you
अरे
kill that
मैं तो
person.
बन ही नहीं सकता ऐसा.
No,
मैं
no,
व्हाई
you.
शुड आई इवन ट्राई टू बिकम समबडी हु इज अवतार ऑफ विष्णु.
Yes. No, no. So if you want to kill somebody, you
You
make
make him a
you make
god.
that person a god.
एंड आई सेड
खत्म.
दैट. इसका रील बनाया मेरी टीम ने.
हम्म.
उनको लगा कि शायद एक अलग पर्सपेक्टिव दे रहा हूं. एंड सुदीप तो जो गालियां पड़ी मेरे को,
ये गलियां पड़ती है ऐसी,
इतनी ज्यादा हेट आया ना. आई कांट. इट्स वेरी हॉरिबल.
no, see, I mean, same with me, right? See, I write about Indian culture. I write a lot about India's and ancient past. So a lot of people brand me as a right wing guy, but then again, sort of, mean, I write about a lot of things, right? Like this, even in sort of, Jesse Bose's book also, right? If you see the way I have dealt with Hinduism or even
Yes.
Brahmoism and the
Yes.
world religion, right? Like there are a lot of things actually which people find it difficult to hear from me when they brand me as a right wing guy. I mean, I don't care whether people call me right wing or left wing. I see what is right to me is right to me, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. So
Yeah,
I mean,
makes sense.
and I believe again, eulogizing somebody and making
Yeah.
somebody God is the biggest harm you can do to that person.
Disservice. I mean, if you're a true
Yes.
follower, that is not what you should do.
Yes, and see, I have fallen in love with Vivekananda more and more when I start knowing him as a person, right? वो कैसे गुस्से होते थे, right? His angers, his frustrations, right?
Yes.
And his this anxiety and all this very low level like rivalry with Tagore, right? I mean, I think that is what makes him great. It is not something that
Yeah.
pulls him down. Why?
Yeah.
He was a human being at the end of the day, and a person who died at the age of 39. I can't believe 39 में मैं क्या था, 39 में,
Yeah.
the anxieties I had and the thought process I had, and a person dying at 39 and doing everything what he has done. भाई वो इंसान भी थे, right? I mean, cigar पीते थे, mutton खाते थे, भाई, with all his vices, and good part is that he acknowledged everything. भाई, I have my weakness, I couldn't overcome that. That's why he's great. Because if you don't have any vice, I mean, you are not a man.
Absolutely. I am so sorry for the sudden interruption. ये हमें करना पड़ता है और हमको इसी प्रकार से इंटरप्ट करना पड़ता है. But I have a request कि guys, अगर आपको थोड़ी भी वैल्यू लग रही है in what we are providing with our podcast, in the kind of content that we are creating, and in the kind of people that we are bringing on our show, please subscribe to our channel. This is the only way in which any podcast on YouTube can grow. It will cost you nothing. आपने सिर्फ सब्सक्राइब करना है. And trust me guys, if you subscribe to this podcast, we'll make sure that we continue delivering you such amazing कंटेंट, इंटेलिजेंट कंटेंट। हम एक इंटेलिजेंट पॉडकास्ट क्रिएट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। दैट इज वाई हमारे जितने भी गेस्ट होते हैं वो सारे पब्लिश ऑथर्स होते हैं जिनका वर्क के देयर इज अ बैकिंग टू देयर वर्क। कोई भी कुछ ऐसे नहीं बोल रहा। सो गाइस प्लीज सब्सक्राइब टू आवर चैनल एंड कंटिन्यू एंजॉइंग एंड लिसनिंग टू दिस एपिसोड। एंड आई थिंक if somebody reads Valmiki's Ramayana,
हाँ,
they would find the same in Ram.
exactly.
He was not a god, he was a man. When his wife was taken away, he was heartbroken, he was emotional, he
Yes,
was a wreck.
exactly.
He was not in his senses.
And see, if you see Ramayana in it, there are sort of contradictions, and I think it was brought up to give a realistic picture. Ram, if you see, right, Ram's character has a lot of shades, right? I mean, he gave up his wife just because some idiots in his
Yes, kingdom.
kingdom told that actually, I mean, she should go through Agni Pariksha. And I mean, see, he was upholding the democratic
Yes.
rights, but then doing so, he sort of screwed up so many things, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, see, and the character of Sita, I mean, she represents a very, devalued woman in a masculine society, right?
Yes.
I mean, she's the epitome of what Indian women go through every moment of time. And I think why, if you see why Sita is treated as a goddess, but not Draupadi. See, if you see that Draupadi's character is much stronger, right?
Yeah.
But we don't worship Draupadi, right?
No.
Because somehow we find it difficult to identify Draupadi with a normal Indian woman. But Sita, the amount of
Piousness.
not violence, but the amount of sort of masculine rejections, or sort of the amount of trouble she went through in a male dominated society, right? See, everything unke साथ जो भी होता है, right? I mean, it happens to a woman only, right? कोई उनको like उठा के लेके चला गया, that problem is still there in India, right? The woman's safety, if you see, right, she had no safety, right? And she is at the mercy of only, I mean, her male, या तो उनका husband हो, या तो उनका brother-in-law, whatever, right? So she's always at the mercy of other males, and then she has to always prove. She has to prove that she is innocent. She has to prove that she is right. That is what Indian women have been going through, right? So I think, I mean, these are amazing things, right? But then when you see her as a deity or as a goddess, right, you forget that, bhai, you have made her a deity not because of the good things, right? Because of the unfortunate things, right? And why don't you worship Draupadi? I mean, I think the most powerful woman character in Indian mythology is Draupadi. I mean,
because people
amazing.
cannot digest the fact that there is this girl who slept and had physical relationship with 5 men.
Yes.
That's the reason, na? ये कोई बोले
And
नहीं,
also she had a soft corner for Karna.
For Karna. Absolutely.
I mean, amazing character, right? So see, that's where I more I read about Indian mythologies, more about try to analyze the Rig Vedas or the Upanishads, right? I fall in love. I mean, amazing things, but then people don't read them, right? People they don't read them because the moment you talk about Rig Veda, log bolag bhai tum to right wing ho.
No, or they would read it, but they would selective reading.
Exactly.
I would want to take what is digestible, and what is not digestible, I would want to completely denounce that.
Exactly. So I have series of these debates, right, with a lot of friends, right, who associate, like, say, this vegetarianism with Hinduism, right, which is nonsense.
Oh God.
I mean, and also see, like for a Bengali, right? So for the Bengalis, there is nothing called vegetarianism.
Yes.
So, and then when I read, the Rig Veda, and when I read Upanishads, I figured out, bhai, कहीं पे नहीं है, right? ये कहाँ से तुम लेके आए हो?
नहीं आया है, ये जैनिज्म के बाद आया है. People don't know जब when Chandragupta Maurya, people don't know this, Chandragupta Maurya ने जब publicly जैनिज्म को see, एक कंट्री कैसे कन्वर्ट होती थी जब उसका किंग कोई पर्टिकुलर रिलीजन को अपना लेता. That is how Islam spread in Malaysia, Indonesia, because the kings adopted that as a religion.
And also, the vegetarianism became little more popular when Adi Shankaracharya, right?
That's true.
He did a resurrection, right? Because he realized that, when he came, right, India was a Buddhist country, right?
Yes.
Till Guptas, right? For almost 1,000 years, India was Buddhist
country.
Post Ashoka till the Gupta.
Post Ashok till a very long time.
When he resurrected Hinduism, right? Then, like, he had to create some differentiation between the existing, because see, for common man, right? I mean, unka ye lofty ideals, Advaita, Vedanta, all these things, he cannot go and tell, right? So you have to create some differences. So he did what suited that time, right? But that doesn't mean that, I mean, again, I have my problems with Adi Shankaracharya also, right? The way he resurrected Hinduism, right? That, Hinduism, or this, whatever we call uh,
asceticism. He
huh,
promoted asceticism, that everything is an illusion, you leave the material. तो आपने वही ना एक वर्टिकल को डिस्कार्ड कर दिया ना,
correct, right?
तो
So I believe,
इंटेंस
see,
क्रिएट हो गया.
so Indian philosophy, right? Like this, like evangelism is not part of Indian culture, right?
You're
So
right.
Adi Shankaracharya, what he did, he did evangelism, right? Correct. So when we are up against Islam evangelism or Islamic
Christian.
conversion, right?
Yeah.
So Adi Shankaracharya to wahi kiya hai, right? But then, so there are a lot of contradictions. And South India, if I say, I mean, I'm in Bangalore, right? So it becomes a problem, right? You are talking about Adi Shankaracharya, bhai, I'm not talking about him. I'm saying that evangelism is not part of our culture. I mean, but he did that, right? I mean, you have to accept that. I mean, he did. He converted India, which was Buddhist, to him. I mean, what he defined as Hinduism, or term Hindu Thani, right? The term Hindu is a very late sort of import into
Vocabulary.
our vocabulary, right? I mean, he used to call it Sanatan Dharma or whatever, the Indian way of life, right? But he did, right? So anyway, I mean, so these are interesting things. And if you see, I have covered all these things in some way or other, because if Jagadish Chandra Bose, Vivekananda and Tagore, this trio, these three people actually, represent a lot of things about the diversity of India, which India should know. And I think one, I would say, implicit, or I would say hidden agenda of writing this book is also to bring out these contradictions, right? Because I thought that India में ये debate होना बहुत जरूरी है,
बिल्कुल.
right? Because you have to accept contradiction, right? See, atheism is a part of Hinduism. A lot of people don't know. लोग बोलते तुम atheist हो भाई, but being atheist is also because you have this.
Charvaka.
Yes, Charvaka, right? So atheism is an accepted ideology or accepted school of thoughts.
It's a philosophy like Vedanta. It's a school of thought that used to
Yes, it's
exist.
school of thought, right? So these contradictions have to be there. So you are not, ऐसा नहीं होता है that okay, you do this, then you are Hindu. If you don't do this, you are not Hindu. ये है नहीं. You can do nothing, or you can do everything, irrespective of what you do. You can be still a Hindu, and you can still not be Hindu. Right?
Oh, that's beautiful.
So this acceptance, right, about divergent views. I mean, okay, I follow this, so everything else is bad. I think that non-vegetarianism promotes violence, so I denounce that. Bhai, kahan pe hai?
बिल्कुल.
I mean, and Jagadish Chandra Bose ka I mentioned this thing, right? So he went one level above, right? So because like he comes from this Advaita Vedantic school of thought, right, where they believe in this one line thing that ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti, which means truth is one, right? Ekam sat, one exists, and the wise people call it variously. So he also has this thing, like what is life, right? And if you see, most of his life is spent on plant neurobiology, right? On nervous systems of plant, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, he used to say that actually, plants also have the same similar nervous system, right? Which is there in animals, right? Animals and human beings, right? And plants also have pains. The same way human beings feel pain, sorrow, plants also feel the same.
So, Sudipto, now what
Yes,
we'll do?
I think let's get started. Yes,
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about. Okay, so I'm gonna start with something, a quote which I've taken from the book, which says, "So Einstein reportedly said, if only for a single one of his many discoveries, Bose should have a statue erected to his memory."
Yes.
So I want to know now, why did you write a book on Jagadish Chandra Bose, and why do you think that JC Bose deserves to be remembered and cherished by Indians and the globe?
Okay. So, a few things, right? One is he is the first scientist of modern India. Okay, he was the first person in modern India who created science as a vocation. So before that, as I wrote in the book, right, science, higher education in science was not available. Correct. He was the first, Indian to be the science professor in a college. Before that, science used to be taught only by whites. Correct. And science education was not even available after a certain degree, right? So first of all, I think the entire scientific studies that we have today, right? I think origin of modern Indian scientific science study is because of this guy. Had he not been there, I think our science education would have been, postponed by might be 50 years. Right? I'm sure somebody would have come. I mean, C.V. Raman also came within 30, 40 years, right? So I'm not saying that science education would have happened, but for sure science education would have been postponed. And at the cusp that India was in, India couldn't have afforded to lose science education for another even 10 years, right? Because when India was getting readied for independence, right, the first thing is that India had to become self-reliant, right? So you cannot become self-reliant or swades sort of so we call about at that time the popular word was Swaraj, right? So Swaraj means self-rule, correct? But philosophically, self-rule means it also means that like it's like you have to like Atmanirbharta, right? That word has again come back, right? So self-rule is not about political rule, right? It's about autonomy, right? Autonomy in every sphere of life, which means you wouldn't be controlled by others, right? So if you don't want to be controlled by others, right, so then you need certain things, right? One is, and scientific education is one of the most important things, right? I mean, so that is the first thing, right? So he saw to it, he saw through it, right? And secondly, scientific research, right? I mean, one is science education, but then you cannot stop only at science education, right? That you need scientific research, right? I mean, he was the first person who used to say that unless you do scientific research, unless you do innovation, right, India will never be self-reliant. See, that same thing we realize now also, right? India is abysmally bad in scientific research and innovation because we have become a service nation, right? Right? Whatsoever may be the reason, right? And I think now we're realizing that we cannot become a powerful nation, right? We cannot become a strong country unless we do our own innovation, right? Even now, people don't want to get into research and R&D and innovation, right? Because you have this drug money, which is the money through IT, money through services. So I call services a drug money. There's a reason, analogy to East India companies, right? So you know why the Eastern India is still so much lacking in industry, and why suddenly most industries historically happened in the West. Only reason is that East India Company was very strong in the Eastern India. I mean, Calcutta, Bihar, UP, right? And for almost 150 years, right, they thrived on indigo, like indigo sale, and also opium sale, right? Opium was a big business. So the opium, the revenue through opium that East India Company used to make around the middle of 19th century was more than the GDP of USA. So Amitabh Ghosh in his IB's trilogy, right? He wrote, this entire all the three books that Amitabh Ghosh has written, right? I mean, this IB's trilogy, right? River of Smoke, Smoke of, these three books, right? He chronicled so wonderfully how the Eastern India went into poverty from being one of the most prosperous regions of the country just by this drug money, opium, and when they started looting money and making money out of drug, you will never set up industries, right? But Bombay was not that strongly controlled by East India Company, right? There were the Parsis, there were the Gujaratis, and there were also the Portuguese, and so Bombay was little more autonomous than Calcutta. That's the reason Bombay, the industries came up much faster. So whenever you have drug money, you don't have industries, right? The same reason when we have got used to the service money, right? India is still not putting enough into R&D and innovation, and that's the reason we are suffering, right? I mean, our number of papers we publish, number of patents we file, number of innovations we do is very low. So that guy realized more than 120 years back, that if India has to be, autonomous or self-reliant, you have to focus on R&D. So these two are on the scientific side. But then again, his thoughts on education, right? I mean, his thoughts about, a lot of things, right? Uh, he collaborated with Sister Nivedita, right? And sort of he's a lot of people don't know a very interesting thing, right? So Tagore and Jagadish Bose, they were almost of the same age. I mean, Bose was 3 years older than Tagore, and they become very good friends. More because ideologically they came from the same fraternity. Both are Brahmos. So if like people who might not know what Brahmoism is, it's an offshoot of Hinduism, right, which was founded by Ram Mohan Roy, again a big social reformer that India has almost forgotten. Uh, so what they did, they realized that Hinduism was getting too dogmatic, right, too ritualistic, right. So what they did, they came up with this, a sort of way of life, which where they told that we will only consider Vedas and the Upanishads, and we will not get bugged by the ritualistic aspects of Hinduism, right? I mean, we will be driven. So our philosophy is Advaita Vedanta. So it's sort of elite form of Hinduism, right? And so both belong to that. And so I mean, it was the end of the 19th century, right? Where I mean, Tagore was. I mean, he had started thinking about arousing the entire India, or uniting the entire India to fight back, right? Because this, I mean, nationalistic fervor, this nationalism were in its, I mean, ascent form, and Tagore realized that अभी स्वराज या independence बाद में आएगा. First, what you need is you have to unite the country. You have to bring people together, right? Now, how do you do that? Correct. So that's where they both collaborated, right? And they, Jagadish Bose and Tagore, they started reading mythologies and history from all across India. They studied Sikh history, they studied Maratha history, they studied Buddhist Jatakas, right? The Buddhist history, right? From Buddha's life, from Bimbisar's life, from the various mythologies around Buddhism, right? And then they figured out that one way to unite India is through their histories and through their mythologies, right? Which again have a common base, and the base is sacrifice, love, unrequited love, selfless love. Selfless means sacrifice to the highest level, right? And he felt that our culture, whether it's the Sikhs, whether it's the Marathas, whether it's Shivaji or Guru Tegh Bahadur, or Guru Gobind Singh, or whether it's Kabir, or whether it's Buddha himself, if you see the underlying thing is again a very basis of Indian philosophy, which is sacrifice, right? Which is love. Then he thought, bhai, agar desh ko jagana hai, right? Desh ko unite karna hai. And first of all, you have to realize that unless you love others selflessly, unless you are ready to sacrifice everything, right? You cannot do anything for the country, right? That's why Rabindranath came up with this collection of poems called Katha. So Katha means tales, right? And he dedicated this to Jagadish Bose, because it was Jagadish Bose's inspiration that you have to arouse the country not through anything else, but through their ancient stories, right, which are built on a value which is common, right? And so he has stories from Shivaji's life. So a Bengali writing a book, anthology of poems, where every poem is from one part of the country. At that time, we didn't have Maharashtra, all these things, but he took story from Rajasthan. He took story. Okay, he took story from Punjab, from Maharashtra, and from Manipur. Can you believe? He took a he took a very insignificant and almost forgotten episode from Mahabharata, where they talk about a Manipuri princess called Chitrangada. Okay, so it so happens that actually when Arjuna was during his hideout, he had spent some time in Manipur, and at that time he fell in love with this a Manipuri princess called Chitrangada. And interesting part of it is that Chitrangada was raised by her father as a boy. Okay. So there are multiple layers to it, right? I mean, one about gender equality, right? And also about the sexuality of women, right? And again, there are a lot of, indirect or might be subdued threads, right? That what Chitrangada actually represents, right? Does she actually represent a non-binary character, or she represents a normal, sort of, a female, right? But whom her father saw to be equal as a boy, right? Because she was raised as a boy, right? And then she fought as a boy, correct? So, this is such an insignificant character from Mahabharata. Rabindranath pulled her out. And there are stories from Chitrangada also in his Katha, right? So there are stories from, like Buddha's, okay, not exactly Buddha's life, but about this unrequited love, either for your lover or for the country. So he doesn't make a difference between the love for your lover and the love for your country, right? So I think this is an amazing thing that Tagore and Jagadish Bose did, correct? And I believe one of the biggest contribution, or I think one of the biggest aspirations that they had was this, to unite a country with tales and stories of sacrifice and love, which is amazing, right? And that is what, Gandhi again did. It is not that he and Tagore would align on everything. So there are contradictions with this Swadesh thing, right? When the Swadeshi movement started after 1905, when the Bengal province was first partitioned, right? So the mother of, Swadeshi movement started from Bengal, when, Rabindranath, he called, he introduced Rakhi in Bengal. So, Raksha Bandhan was not a part of Indian, a part of Bengali culture, right? It was more of the Western India thing, right? Mainly UP and, this Braj Bhumi, right? Which comes from Krishna, and, so she introduced Raksha Bandhan, right? So it is not about sister, brother protecting the sister, right? So he transformed that into, people protecting each other. It is not about one brother protecting the sister, right? It is about human beings protecting other human beings, right? So he did that. See, that was, if you think, right, he didn't go into violence, right? He didn't go into activism, right? He told that our country is getting partitioned, right? So we have to save each other, right? Because somebody is killing us, right? Somebody is breaking us down. Somebody is dividing us, right? So we have to be united. And how do we unite ourselves? Just be together, save each other, love each other, right? See, and that time, another offshoot of that was this self-reliance, right? That you have to, boycott foreign products or English-made product, right? So Jagadish Bose was hyper national, right? If you say that. So he started promoting this Indian products, right? The Swadeshi products, right? And then it so happened that he and his friend, again another famous doctor, Neil Ratan Sarkar. He was a very nationalistic doctor. So there's a college, like one of the famous medical colleges in Calcutta is called Neil Ratan Sarkar Medical College. So Jagadish Bose and Neil Ratan Sarkar, they took some Swadeshi soaps. So this the doctor, Dr. Sarkar, he started a company. They started making crude, Swadeshi soaps, because at that time soaps were mainly manufactured by English or European companies. So so Jagadish Bose takes that soap and he goes to Shantiniketan to meet his friend Tagore, and Tagore just throws it off. Like, "Kya hai, bakwas hai, the quality is bad." And then Jagadish Bose finds that actually Tagore's daughter, who was very close to Jagadish Bose, youngest daughter, she's playing with English dolls. So what with Jagadish Bose, Bandhu, like he used to call Tagore Bandhu. So Bandhu is friend, right? And they used to call each other by friend. Ki friend, you are, you write so much about self-reliance, you write about, uh, indigenous industry, but your daughter is playing with an English doll, and you say that this Swadeshi soap is bad. You don't keep, it's the quality, देखो क्या है ये? See, the thing is that Swadesi hai, but then what we talk now, right? That you have to do something where the quality should be global, right? So you cannot replace a fine American or a Chinese product with a gross Indian product, right? See, that's where the
Yeah.
universalism, that's where the nuances of Swadesi comes in, right? That quality is important, right? Focus on research R&D, right? You cannot just for the gimmick, just for the heck of it, right? You do something, the product is bad. See, that's what we are realizing now, right? That you have to promote Indian manufacturing, but you have to manufacture for the world. You make in
Yeah.
India, but not necessarily only for India,
Yeah.
right?
Clearly, Jagadish Chandra Bose was somebody who was very, very nationalistic,
Hmm.
very well read,
Hmm.
but he was very much a Vedantic as well, as in inspired by the
Yes.
concepts of
Yes.
Vedas, very well versed in
Advaita Vedanti.
Upanishads, Advaita Vedantin, similar to what Ramakrishnan mission is, and
Hmm.
Vivekananda and their philosophies and
Yes.
everything.
Yes, sir.
So this is non-duality,
Hmm.
right? So basically everything is the same consciousness, and
Yes.
there
Yes.
is God and everything. Now, what I want to understand, and help me over here, okay? And then we'll talk about what he actually did. On one hand, you have an Indian physicist or an Indian scientist.
A scientist.
Scientist, let's say we have an Indian scientist on one hand. On other hand, you have an Western scientist. I'm not naming anyone, I'm just taking a use case. Now this Indian scientist is somebody who is in the field of science, जो मांगती है आपसे प्रमाण, proof. The proof is in the pudding. Show me the steps, show me the proof, dissect the frog so that I can see that there is a heart inside. Otherwise, we're not going to believe. So this Indian scientist is Advaita Vedantic, follows and understand the concepts of ancient Indian philosophy. Obviously is inspired and also is a scientist. A Western person is somebody who's just a man of science. He has no understanding of Vedas, he has no understanding of Bible, nothing at all. Just focus on discovering and creating new things. And both are able to reach to great heights. So what I want to know is Indian philosophy, like Vedas and Upanishads, can they be combined with science to create something incredible?
When we deal with this topic, right, we have to be very, very cautious because there is a tendency of claiming a lot of things as part of Indian wisdom, right? So there is a school of thought. They claim that that in ancient India, in Ramayana, Mahabharata, we knew how to make aeroplanes and we knew how to make atom bombs, right? So there is a problem, right? So ancient Indian wisdom, right, whether it's in the Vedas or Upanishads or the various messages that you find in the Ramayana Mahabharata, right? See, they are not scientific documents, right? They talk about uh, in universal wisdom, right? So it is wrong to say that we knew about atomic energy and all these things, right? But what it had, the universal premise was uh, was there, which is so universal that actually even the modern science cannot refute that, right? And I say why, right? See, why do you think Einstein got so much fascinated with Tagore? Einstein met Tagore a few times because they both were part of a body which was created by the League of Nations. I forgot the name of the organization. So they both were part of a body which was created under the League of Nations, and they were working on
Freemason.
sharing. Huh? No,
Freemason.
not Freemason. No, not Freemason. That was part of a sharing intellectual property, various across various countries, right? So Bose and Einstein met a few times there, but first time when Einstein met Bose was at at a lecture in Geneva, which was happening during one of the League of Nations meetings, right? So there, I mean, Jagadish Bose talked about all this, the plant, neurobiology and this plant nerves, right? So Einstein got fascinated, and why he made the statement, right, that only for this. So what was this invention, right? He was referring to this invention where he figured out that actually, plants and animals, they are also united at certain level, right? See, Einstein, though he hadn't read much about Indian philosophy or this, I mean, I'm not sure whether he had read Rig Veda or Upanishad directly, but he also comes from the similar school of thought, right? Because most of his life, so 1915 was the last time where he sort of, he like came out with something big, which was the general theory of relativity. General theory of relativity, which came in 1915. And from 1915 till the time he died, I think in mid 50s. So last 40 years of his life, he became a laughing stock for for the scientists, right? And he attained a position where he became a saint. So a lot of young scientists like Heisenberg, then Schrodinger, right? All these quantum physics guys, right? All the modern, scientists like who created quantum physics, right? They used to always make fun of Einstein because Einstein started speaking things which are apparently illogical, right? So he he never believed in the quantum physics, right? Because see, quantum physics is based on this idea of probability, right? So very famously he said, and in the Oppenheimer movie, actually that dialogue is there, that Einstein told God never plays dice. That means there cannot be any uncertainty in anything, right? Which is exactly what Advaita Vedanta says, right? Ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti, right? But that doesn't mean that Indian knew about quantum theory, right? So, the basic underlying philosophy was there. And I believe, say, Einstein also came to the same philosophic realization, separately, right? In knowledge is universal, right? It's not that only Indians have come up with that realization. Modern scientists, lot of ancient civilizations, right, also had this extreme close relationship between the nature and humanity, right? Correct. So it is not something unique to Indian civilization, right? Again, problem happens when we claim that only we knew this. See, universal knowledge, right, will be known to everybody, right? So yes, what is there in Upanishads, in the Vedas, this universal knowledge or this Advaita Vedantic thing? Yes, it is very universal in nature, and it might have been written in a very wonderful way. I think it was the first time such knowledge was codified, because Rig Veda happens to be the oldest book of mankind, and Upanishads also. Again, I believe not many books were written before Upanishads, and obviously, like Rig Veda has been proof that it is the oldest book written by the humanity, right? So before that, you have something from Mesopotamia. All this, they are not books; they are just like they are uh, accounting. Sort of you did something to keep accounts, right? They are not books, right? So yes, we can always claim that we were earlier to come to this realization, but other people have also come to similar realization, right? And I think universal knowledge will be attained by people anywhere in the world, right? So you don't have to read Vedas and Upanishads to come to that. But yes, we can always claim that yes, if you read Vedas and Upanishads, right, you have clarity of thought, right? But then, for Jagadish Bose also it became a problem, right? He became so spiritual. He started quoting from the Upanishads and Rig Veda. So
Yeah.
his papers used to be, rejected, right? Because, there is a way you write scientific paper, right? You cannot quote from Bible, you cannot quote from Upanishads and then write a scientific paper, right? So he started doing that. And that's the reason, he was forgotten, because his paper were, his papers were getting, rejected, right? Like in the peer review, because people again started thinking of, again, another Oriental, metaphysicist, right? So
But
he,
Sudipto, don't you think that it was bound to get rejected? I mean, don't you think that that is the reason why the scientific community would even think? I mean, if I'm just playing the devil's advocate, if I'm the head of a peer reviewing community, I am an esteemed scientist or researcher, in my own capacity, and if I do receive papers which have quotations from a scripture of a particular geography,
Hmm.
I mean, even I would question, right? So don't you? I
No,
mean,
it was natural. No, no. So that's the reason I never said that people forgot him, or he was penalized, or he was rejected because he was an Indian. No, I think on the other way around, the patronage that he got from Europe, from his English professors, from his English friends. I mean, amazing. I mean, he was patronized by Lord Kelvin. He was patronized by Lord Raleigh, who then won the Nobel Prize, right? So his professors, his teachers used to love him, as their own son. So Lord Kelvin used to treat Jagadish Bose as his son, right? So he was highly patronized by a lot of British scientists, right? By his friends, like even Einstein, right? So Einstein was, I mean, the way he wrote about Jagadish Bose, there are you don't find a lot of references because they didn't happen to meet much, but he was forgotten because he was bound to be forgotten because like in scientific review there is a certain format you need to follow, right? And he didn't follow that format, and that is the reason he was penalized. But see, good part is that in 90s there was there was a resurrection of Jagadish Bose because this plant neurobiology and all those things again, people started showing interest. So now plant neurobiology is a very nascent area where people are doing research. Plant cognition has become
Can you
a
explain
new
on this
area.
thing? Can you explain what this exactly is and how Bose's initial research contributed to this field?
Okay, so plant cognition means plant intelligence, right? So he also wrote that plant had a rudimentary form of intelligence, right? So they knew what to do, how to react, right? Like if you this sunflower, right, and moving towards sun, correct? So this is also sort of intelligence, right? That he like it has to move, it has to always face the sun, right? So how it happens? It happens through neurological thing, right? I mean, he proved that it is a nervous system, right? Like when sort of when like I mean, sunlight is a stimulus, right? When it gets the stimulus, right? So sort of that stimulus is processed within, and then very much like how our brain operates, right? So there is some brain, right? I mean, he didn't uh, talk, or he couldn't find where the plant brain is, but he was very sure that actually there is, I mean, nervous system in a plant where they transmit the signals, they're processed, right? And that's how the plant changes the direction, right? So everything that the plant does, he felt that actually there's an inbuilt intelligence, right? Correct. So but he also told it's a very rudimentary form of intelligence because plant doesn't have an evolved brain, right? So the intelligence of the plant might be compared to some very basic amoeba, right? Where, I mean, very rudimentary form of intelligence, right? But now with this artificial intelligence, right, people are interested to know because see, you are mimicking intelligence, human intelligence, right? But if you know how it evolved, right? So plant cognition can be a very rudimentary form of intelligence, right? So now in people are, again, it is not a very widely accepted field, but people are doing research about plant intelligence, right? So plant intelligence is now a well-known, not very well-known, but a very nascent topic that people are working on, right? So it happened, might be like he talked about it long time back when people are not yet ready to hear about this. So that's where I think he was, I mean, resurrected. And then again, almost at the same time, his work on radio also become public, right? I mean, so
So
he
what
is
was his
now,
work on? What was his? Is he
so
somewhere credited as?
yes,
Let's talk about his. Yeah.
yes. So Jagadish Chandra Bose and Nikola Tesla and few other people are officially credited with the invention of wireless. Okay, not radio as such, but the wireless system, right? And both, it's not that they did independently; they also dependent used a lot of work. So I mean, it's a collective work. A lot of people did a lot of things, right? But one of the first, one of the earliest functioning wireless system was set up by Jagadish Chandra Bose in Calcutta, right? So that has been acknowledged, and IEEE, which is which is called the International IEEE, which is Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, which is the professional organization for uh, the electrical and the electronic engineer, right? Which is also an arbitrator, which is also the upholder of a lot of standards, right? Which drive the industry, right? So they are the largest professional organization, and also they are the central body, right? Which controls and which propagates the standards, right? Because 5G and all these things, right? I mean, in telecom and in sort of in communication, right? You need a lot of standards, right? So there has to be a universal standard which everybody should follow, right? So they are the custodians of all this thing. So they officially acknowledge that yes, Jagadish Chandra Bose had one of the earliest functioning wireless systems, right? And then it was proved beyond doubt that Marconi, the receiver, radio receiver that Marconi used in his first transatlantic wireless transmission in 1901 was actually Jagadish Bose's receiver. So Marconi used Jagadish Bose's receiver and Nikola Tesla's transmitter, right? So he did plagiarize, right? And Marconi never gave credit to Jagadish Chandra Bose, right? So there are, it's it can be conspiracy theory, but in my book, I cited a lot of credible authority and a lot of credible research done, and IEEE itself published a lot of these research paper about the mystery behind the receiver that Marconi had used, because everybody knew that Marconi didn't have a receiver, and one of the biggest problems that Marconi faced was that he somehow failed to have a very strong receiver, and suddenly he used a very strong receiver, right? So people become suspicious, and a lot of things happens, and then Marconi came up with a lot of concocted stories and narrative that people would immediately catch hold. But somehow during that time, right, they couldn't figure out what exactly he had used, which finally was unearthed in the 1990s. See, in academic circle, Jagadish Bose is a very well-known figure in wireless communication, especially anybody who writes about 5G. They acknowledge that he was the first person to have used millimeter waves for wireless communication in 1895 and 1896, right? So almost 100 years before 5G came into being. Right?
Imagine that Indians don't know that. What if they come to know about the fact that the 5G that we have right now is credited in one way or the other to JC Bose?
Well, again, it's not crediting the entire 5G, but a small aspect of 5G.
A small aspect, but that's
yes.
Yeah.
Again, see, 5G,
a block in a Lego is a block.
Exactly. See, 5G is not an invention of one person, right? It's a lot of work done by a lot of people, and it's sort of building over 4G. 4G was again built over 3G, right? So it's 20-30 years of work, right? But yes, in that, a very vital part was actually invented or first done by Jagadish Chandra Bose, right? So yes, so I believe these are also amazing things that I believe Indians should know. And interestingly, see what happens, right? These are all well-known things in the academic circle, right? But somehow the layman, non-scientific crowd, they don't know about Jagadish Chandra Bose, right? So see, Bose is a pretty well-known figure in my field. In telecommunication, everybody knows about Jagadish Chandra Bose. Right?
Sudipto, now I want to touch upon a very, very important aspect of. So we have understood about JC Bose, why we should remember him, his contributions directly and indirectly, his philosophical school of thought, where he comes from. There is a chapter in your book called Contempt. Now, Contempt was one chapter which really riled me up. Okay, I have a line from that chapter. So it goes like this. The plan was to treat the Indians and their everything with so much contempt that they would start believing that they were indeed a despicable people and that their only hope of upliftment was to look up to their rulers, the British. I want to touch upon that how, or if they indeed did, how the British rule and even post that strategically they destroyed the Indian education system and never let the scientific vertical progress. A, is there a reality in this thing? And B, what have been the consequences if this is true? This is what I want to delve into now.
I think Shashi Tharoor has written enough on this, right? So he is a very strong sort of,
You're talking about the era of darkness?
Yes, era of darkness, and not only one book, right? He wrote multiple books, right? Where he has been very particular about the destruction that the British people have done, not only to education, but to our economy and
but this
to everything.
Is a fact, right? And when it comes to education, this is a fact that they have.
Yes,
so
yes,
first acknowledging that, yes.
Absolutely. Right? I will, just you see, right? People say that we got the first engineering college, we got the first medical college because of the British. Undoubtedly, it is true. But if you see, they made engineering colleges, medical colleges, law colleges, right? And then they had this ICS, right? This Indian Civil Service, right, where they used to create civil servants. So everything they did that they needed to run the country. You need engineers to run the country. You need doctors to run the country. You need lawyers to run the country, and you need the civil servants, right? So everything was meant to create these three vocations, right? That's the biggest problem, right? That everything else was deemed not needed, right? And when it came to science, I think somehow they had deep in their mind that if Indians do science, they will beat us, right? They beat us badly in our own trade. So intentionally they didn't want the science education to be popular, because they knew that scientific education, see, the modern world or the industrial revolution, right, happened in the West, building over science, right? I mean, science and technology is something that ushered the modern age and the Western civilization. They leapfrogged only because of science and technology, right? So they knew very well, right, that if India gets into science and technology, right, they will also make their own things, right? I mean, we'll be wiped out, right? So very interestingly, right, they didn't want Indians to do science, right? So I think the biggest problem I see with the English education system is that they're this thing that you have to keep science away from them, right? And then you create everything to entire system is curated to create doctors, engineers, lawyers and civil servants. आज भी वही है. लोगों को लगता है कि अगर तुम डॉक्टर नहीं बने हो तुम्हारा लाइफ है नहीं. So even now, see, this craze for becoming doctor, craze for becoming engineer is so high that that this research filling this urge for doing research, R&D, innovation is not there even now, because that was we inherited from our education system. Our education system was created to kill your research instinct, to kill your R&D spirit, right? Because they wanted that, right? बस ये चार लोग चाहिए हम, डॉक्टर चाहिए, इंजीनियर चाहिए, लॉयर चाहिए और सिविल सर्वेंट चाहिए, बाकी तो छोड़ो. See, that's horrible, right? I mean, you cannot run a society with only 4 people, right? That's the reason why our education system is bad, and why like why is so much hankering after being a doctor, right? Because for 100 years, right, we are taught if you're not a doctor, then if you're not an engineer, if you're not a lawyer, तुम कुछ हो ही नहीं, right? So, and what else do you need to see, right? And why our abysmal performance in innovation is just what you would say, like it's a legacy of our education system, right? We don't learn to innovate. We don't learn to think, right? We just learn to rot. Usko, you just become rotten, right? But by rotting, right? But usko memorize karo, and then that's all, right? It's all the rot. That is setting in our system and in our mind. It's just because you have to memorize things and things. Bas engineer ban jao, doctor ban jao. Bas the country is not run only by engineers and doctors. See, I'm not saying that actually. I'm engineer, so I know how important my role is, right? But there are so many vocations which are equally important, right? It's not, this 4 system, but in India, there is an extraordinary importance given to only this 4 vocations, right? That's the problem. Right? Our creativity, no school, college, fosters creativity, right? We are not taught to be creative. We are taught to just, see, that's the reason, see, why services we did so well, because service, you don't have to create anything, right? You just implement, right? So इसलिए ना services में we did very well because we were created to do service. So servitude is imbibed in our system so well, right, that we were created to service the world. Right?
And do you think this is the same reason why there is no Indian startup that you can name which has a global impact? name me one Indian startup or tech company that you can see like Google, like Facebook,
Okay,
like
see, tech में नहीं है, but yes, then in automotive, so Tata Motors is of course yes. I mean, so they are global companies. Mahindra is global company. So in automotive, in biotechnology, in pharmacy, right? So like Indian pharma companies are the global companies, right? So only the tech domain, only in technology, right? So okay, so automobile is also technology, right? So we have, I mean, good global companies, right? Even Infosys, I mean, TCS, right? They are global companies in services. So they are global brands. So Tata is a global brand, right? Infosys is a global brand, and in automotive we are among the top. Uh, so Tata is a top brand in automobile industry, right? So it's not that we don't have global brand, but in high tech, right? High tech domain in technology, right? We lag, right? Even automotive, I think it happened because only of Tata and Mahindra, right? I mean, so
and
these two people
this
did,
is
right?
we lack in technology, which is very much evident, and this is because of the systematic disimplementation of the entire Indian education system with the
Absolutely,
British कि हमें
absolutely,
साइंस को
right?
तो हटाओ भैया,
हाँ,
इनको तो
हटा ही दो. And see, only thanks to people like Tatas and these Ambanis and these Mahindras, right? So like there are few business houses, right? They went beyond their thing and mainly driven by nationalistic feeling. So Jamshedji Tata को कोई जरूरत नहीं था कि इतना फाइट मार के स्टील कंपनी बनाया, right? I mean, he went we went to a different level, like all his life he struggled, and the steel plant was made in Jamshedpur after he died.
yeah.
So he didn't see the steel plant, he didn't see any of the power plants in his life. The only thing that he saw was the Taj Mahal hotel, right? But he has spent his whole life envisioning this Tata Steel, right? Because it knew that अगर scientific innovation industry चाहिए इंडिया में, right? You need technology in this country, right? So इंडिया में जो भी इंडस्ट्री है, they are thanks to mainly, of course, I mean, Jamshedji Tata was the forerunner in industrializing India, right? British India में कभी इंडस्ट्री नहीं करता.
So basically, if JC Bose became JC Bose, it was because of his hunger. It was because of
Yes.
his intelligence, not because the country fostered an ecosystem wherein he
No, no,
could.
no. It's not. It's just
It's
one man
a
show.
one man show.
See,
So
see,
had
Jamshedji
he.
Tata again. It's a one man show, right?
Absolutely.
Jamshedji Tata was not a product of Indian education system.
So we don't have that fostering right now. If JC
No,
Bose gets reincarnated in today's time, still it would be a one man show, right?
one man show.
वन मैन शो ही
It's
होगा ना,
again a
राइट?
one man
अभी भी
show.
हमने वो
Yes.
इकोसिस्टम नहीं फॉस्टर
नहीं.
करा हुआ है. तो सुदीप, तो
See,
क्यों ये हमारी क्या बोलेंगे आलसपन है? आप कब तक ये ब्लेम करते रहेंगे कि ब्रिटिशर्स आए एंड दे रॉब्ड अस?
see again. It's well lethargic, right? I mean, I say like uh, I'm in electronics domain, right? And so India there is no global brand in electronics, right? हम लोग टेलीविजन भी नहीं बनाते. एक जमाना था जब ओनिडा, वीडियोकॉन, बीपीएल बोल के कंपनीज हुआ करता था. नाउ देयर इज नॉट अ सिंगल television Indian television maker, right?
ऑल कोरियन.
All whatever, right? I mean, we are zero in electronics manufacturing, right? I mean, where electronics is everywhere, right? So why it is? Because we are lethargic, right? We are fond of drag money, which is service, right? Yes, service में घुस करे. We are used to services where you earn money from the very day one. You don't have to invert, you don't have to invest anything, you don't have to slog, you don't have to shed your blood and sweat, right? We lethargy and the drag money, which is the services, right? So services which created, which was a necessity in 90s, has become sort of a, what do you call, curse now, because people are not coming out of this service mentality, right? क्यों लोग लगता है भाई क्यों करें, चलो सर्विस में चला जाए ना. So people have mentality like वो शेडिंग बैलेंस पे
सेफ प्ले वाली बात जो होती है.
सेफ खेलना है और वहां पे पैसा आ ही जाएगा, राइट?
तो
और
वो ये एक ही बात हुई ना, तो सुदीप, तो कि स्पोर्ट्स भी वही खेलेंगे जिसमें एक खड़े होकर बस बैटिंग करते रहो, थोड़ा सा भाग लो. दैट्स व्हाई क्रिकेट इज द
So I think so now we cannot blame the Britishers now. Fine, now it is our lethargy, our lack of, I think one is lethargy and lack of nationalistic feeling, right? We are not patriots. We don't love our country. We are just a bunch of selfish, useless generation, right? Where we are happy doing services for the others. We are working for the others, but we don't want to work for our country. Throw the sacrifice.
and this is a reality, right? This is such a
See again, I told
sad.
you. See again, throw the sacrifice चाहिए यार. मतलब you have to sacrifice something for the country. You have to love the country, right? And how do you show your love for the country? Not by singing Jana Gana Mana, not by like
saying Jai Shri Ram and all that stuff.
ऐसा नहीं होता है ना. Even Jai Shri Ram I mean, बोलने में कोई हर्ज नहीं है, right? So Jai Shri Ram, fine. You hail Lord Ram, fine. I mean,
But
Ram
let
stands
that
for
not
serving.
be your response to everything.
No,
Let that not be a solution to everything.
no, unless you do something for your
Yeah,
country,
yeah.
what are you doing, right? I mean, see, and doing for the country now is doing innovation, investing in technology, or you cannot say the government सब कुछ करेगा. भाई, I mean, government क्या क्या करेगा?
नहीं possible है.
See, America became America not because of government, right?
Because of Steve Jobs,
Individuals.
because of Bill Gates, because of people who took risk.
Yes. See, people of generations after generations, they invested, they took risk, they did amazing innovations in so many areas, right? So yeah, we have to do that, right? It's not easy. But we have to. Even investors in India are
Playing it safe.
Bunch of lazy,
Yes.
self-centered people, right? You, India, cannot be self-reliant unless you invest in manufacturing, unless you invest in innovation. And in innovation, you have to bleed, you have to sacrifice. See, Vivekananda used to tell, right? Nothing big has ever happened without sacrifice, right? See, Jagadish, scientists, right? They sacrifice their whole life,
Yeah.
not getting anything. See, again, why I want to talk about Jagadish Chandra, Tata, Jamshedji Tata, or even the entire Tata, even not only Tata, right? Even see, I mean, Dhirubhai Ambani, right? Sort of, despite whatever people might say about him, right? Why he did something that nobody thought, and country needed that. Agar oil, see, he some 60s may thought that actually oil refinery in India mein hona chahiye, right? So that was something he felt for the country, right? I mean, he went against license Raj ke time mein to set up an oil refinery. Bhai, kya zarurat tha unko, right? I mean, it was a lot of sacrifice. See, and again, at the end of the day, I always tell to others, right? So Ambani, Tata, they have become Tata because of the sacrifice also they have made, and also because of the risk they have taken, and also they always did what the country needed. Correct. So it is not, uh, country needed steel plant, power plant. Tata did that, right? Country needed oil refinery. Ambani did that, right? So they are rich because they have worked for the country.
Yeah.
Correct. So again, nationalism is also, I mean, very lucrative. Agar dekha jaye, right? If you are a very nationalistic person, if you work for the country, you make much more money than by you doing service and all this. Like now, service, I mean, बहुत हो गया भाई. I mean, get shed some blood and sweat, service कर करके country का और कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. You have to get into manufacturing. You have to get into research R&D. You have to shed your blood and sweat. You have to sacrifice, right? And I think that what the Gen Zs should know, and that's why I think people should read about Jagadish Bose. And also, I mean, it's not about only he represents a fraternity of people, right, who are selfless, who relentlessly have worked for the country, and I mean, they had only one agenda in life without any outcome, right? Ki bhai, we have to do things what the country needs, right? आगे क्या होगा देखा जाएगा, right? I mean, we are ready to sacrifice everything. I think that is needed, right?
Yeah.
So that, I have my entire career. I'm an electronics engineer. I did electronics engineering from IIT Kharagpur. 30 years I've been working in electronics engineering. I feel ashamed, right? There is not a single Indian electronic company. I feel ashamed for my fraternity, and my head hang in shame. I mean, and I see, everybody's so proud. Like my friends who are working in all these multinational electronic companies, right? All these semiconductor companies, they are so proud that we have done this and that. We have done this. Bhai, country के लिए क्या किया भाई? We don't have an Indian electronic company. तो काहे का pride? I feel ashamed. I feel ashamed of myself. I feel ashamed of my fraternity that I haven't done anything for my country, right? At least being an engineer, मैंने क्या किया? Nothing. I mean, it's sad. I mean, I hope the Gen Zs who are smarter than us, who are more chill, and I think they might do something. They might, take up what we didn't do. I mean, what my generation failed. We are selfish guys. I mean, we just worked in multinational companies, did what I don't know. I mean, if you ask me what I did my entire 30 year, I don't know what I did. And what I'm doing now, I am still employed in an engineering service companies, right? I mean, we do services, but I don't know what service I do. किसके लिए मैं सर्विस करता हूँ, राइट?
No, that
देश
is
के लिए तो नहीं करता हूँ.
I don't know what to say, Sudipto. आपने बहुत never you, कभी किसी ने ऐसे नहीं बोला. And this is a stark naked reality.
And I am also part of the game. I am also selfish. मैं इतना लेक्चर बाजी कर रहा हूँ, but हमने भी क्या किया, right? मतलब so
No, you're
again,
right.
it might sound hypocritical. लोग बोलेगा भाई तुम तो खुद कुछ नहीं किए हो, right? इतना बोल रहे हो, but I feel sorry for that. I mean, at least I acknowledge, right? And I'm trying to do in small ways, like I'm छोटा मोटी इधर उधर हाथ पैर मार रहा हूँ, देखते आगे क्या होता है, right?
So
But
I think this is why people should know about figures like JC Bose, because
yes,
they actually
exactly.
bled. They bled for the country, and I think
Yes,
he started a school wherein he wanted to give it as a gift, the
yes,
temple of science. So let's
yes.
conclude this conversation with his vision, of his school. What does he mean when what did he meant when he said temple of science? What did he wanted to see in this country?
So in English, he calls it, Bose Institute, right? But in Bangla, it is called Boshu Vigyan Mandir, which is Bose, so Vigyan Mandir is Temple of Science.
Yeah.
So the Bangla name for, Bose Institute is actually Bose Temple of Science. But in English, he didn't want to do that, right? I mean, like English is to maintain a Bose Institute. So the Bose Institute is the first, multidisciplinary research institute of Asia, and it was the first institute where they did only research. So ISC Bangalore is 10 years older than Bose Institute. So Bose Institute was founded in 1917, and I think ISC Bangalore came in 1907, right? But ISC Bangalore was a college, right? It did research, but it also imparted science education, right? But Bose Institute doesn't have any curriculum. It's only for research, right? So that was a first multidisciplinary only research institute of India and of Asia also. And even now there are not many institutes, right, which don't give any degree, right? They are only for research, and it was privately funded, right? Like he gave all his life savings, right? And then he placed that amount on table, and then he requested the government to pay a similar amount. So the British government also, after seeing Bose's dedication, right, so they also pitched in, right? So that's how Bose Institute became a national institute, right? अभी भी इंडिया में अभी भी है नहीं. There are not many institutes like Bose Institute even now in India.
So his vision basically was to make India a very a powerhouse when it comes to
powerhouse in interdisciplinary research, right? See, Bose Institute not much came out of Bose Institute later. Yeah. He died, and then again he also became little, I think, disoriented,
disinterested as well. I mean, he kind of like drifted.
No, drifted, and I mean there are many reasons for that. I mean, so that can be a different. Topic we can. So again, extremely interesting, right? So nothing much came out of Bose Institute in the last 100 years, right? So they just recently they have celebrated 100 years, right? I mean, but it's sad because like the people who came, but they also didn't have that art. See, just setting up the institute doesn't solve all the purpose, right? So you have to also. The people should have that urge, right? People should this research orientedness, right? This research ecosystem, right? See, nobody talks about research, right? जो scientist अभी लोगों को लगता है ये पता नहीं क्या करता है, right? But तो सबको इंजीनियर बनना होता है, सबको सर्विस में जाना होता है, right? तो research, I mean, that's the reason India is so poor in research. I think it's our basic lethargy and our lack of love for the country, our lack of sacrifice for the country. We are a bunch of selfish nerds. I don't know what we do. जो देश के लिए काम नहीं करते हो तो क्या कर रहे हो भाई?
But brains है ना, ये है, but हम उसको exercise नहीं कर रहे हैं.
No, क्या फायदा है ऐसे brains का, right? The same guy will go to US and then actually do something. But then again, see, a lot of people have done wonderful things outside, right? But then again, you can say that actually यहाँ पे infrastructure था नहीं, तो जगदीश बोस ने कैसे किया भाई?
बिल्कुल सही बात है।
उस टाइम में कुछ तो नहीं था, राइट? सो यू कैन ऑलवेज ब्लेम दैट इंडिया में था नहीं भाई, अगर था नहीं तो तू खुद कुछ नहीं किया, मतलब इट्स वे ऑफ यूज टू दिस थिंग दैट एक्चुअली आवर सिस्टम इज बैड, गवर्नमेंट कुछ नहीं किया, वो नहीं, वो कुछ नहीं किया, हमको पसंद नहीं। इवन एन आईटी इज आल्सो आई सी नाउ इज, सो me being an IT product, I'm very closely associated with my friends. A lot of my friends are in IT, right? They also claim कि गवर्नमेंट पैसा नहीं देता, ये नहीं करते, वो नहीं करते। भाई गवर्नमेंट सब करेगा तो तू क्या करेगा?
बिल्कुल सही बात है। इट्स इट्स
भाई
इट्स इट्स
मतलब
लाइक यू हैव टू क्लैप लाइक दिस।
I mean, this is a nonsense that ecosystem नहीं है। I hear in manufacturing also, right? अबे यहाँ पे इकोसिस्टम नहीं है यार, मतलब चाइना में सस्ते में मिल जाता है, वहां पे लाइक इट्स वेरी टफ, रेड टेपिज्म, ये हो भाई, इसलिए ही तो करना है, राइट? द प्रॉब्लम इज देयर,
क्योंकि
बट इफ यू
नहीं है,
डोंट
वी हैव टू क्रिएट, इट्स नॉट गोना मैजिकली अपीयर
सैक्रिफाइस
वन डे।
करो, ब्लीड, इफ यू डोंट ब्लीड फॉर द कंट्री, व्हाई आर यू बॉर्न भाई? मतलब इंसान होके पैदा होने का कोई जरूरत क्या? सी एन एनिमल आल्सो इज बॉर्न, लीड्स अ लाइफ हैप्पीली, दे डाई विदाउट एनी कंट्रीब्यूशन टू द कंट्री, टू द सोसाइटी। तो हम लोग कर क्या रहे हैं अगर देश के लिए काम नहीं कर रहे हैं, और आज के तारीख में मैन्युफैक्चरिंग नहीं कर रहे हैं, अगर हम लोग इनोवेशन नहीं कर रहे, वी आर डूइंग ए डिससर्विस टू द नेशन। एंड ऑल दिस पीपल हु आर डूइंग, इंक्लूडिंग मी, सर्विस वाले लोग जो है, ऐसे नहीं कि सर्विस नहीं चाहिए, फाइन करो, बट साथ में यू हैव टू इन्वेस्ट इन इनोवेशन। इफ यू आर नॉट डूइंग, यू आर नॉट डूइंग इनफ फॉर द कंट्री। Anil, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is what frustrates me, and might be I'm waiting it out. Like, I mean,
एंड इट
all
शुड
around
इट
I see
शुड
this
इट
lethargy.
शुड फ्रस्ट्रेट यू, आई मीन
All
इट
around
डेफिनेटली
I
शुड
see this
फ्रस्ट्रेट
lethargy, right? और सब सिस्टम नहीं है यार, मतलब I- इंडिया में मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बहुत मुश्किल है। तो मुश्किल चीज ही तो करना है तुमको, मतलब
यू। वो ना आसान चीज तो दीप, तो वो सर्विस मेंटालिटी से आती है,
वही।
दैट आपको इस डेट पे इतना पैसा मिल जाएगा,
But
दैट्स इट।
thank God, we still have people like Ambani's, the Tatas, right? I mean, whatever you say about these people, right? But still, they are the people, right, who at least take the risk, right?
या
You can say that fine. I mean, there are a lot of kickbacks and वो quid pro quo वाला फंडा हो गया, right? That they are also corrupt, right? I mean, okay, but at least अगर ये लोग नहीं होते, तीन चार ये फैमिलीज नहीं होते, राइट? आई मीन, कुछ नहीं होता इंडिया में एटलीस्ट, राइट? अभी स्टील प्लांट नहीं होता, ऑटोमोबाइल में रतन टाटा, लाइक द नैनो माइट हैव फेल्ड, राइट? बट द इनोवेशन दैट वेंट behind nano, Ratan Tata, he revolutionized the entire automotive industry in the world, and he like forced everybody to watch towards that. So he brought a revolution in the world. And during 2008 when nano came out, right? So Tata group became number 5 in innovation worldwide. So इनोवेशन जो भी होता है इंडिया में, वही घूम फिर के ये तीन चार कंपनी,
या
ये तीन चार फैमिली ही करता है। टेल मी वन थिंग, राइट? एटॉमिक पावर स्टेशन इंडिया में था नहीं, राइट? होमी जहांगीर बाबा को क्या पड़ी थी, राइट?
बिल्कुल
व्हाई डिड ही गो to that extent of finally sacrificing his life? Yes, now there are a lot of theories who say that he might have been killed by CIA, right? Like, might have been, right? But
द
see,
प्लेन क्रैश्ड।
yes, his sole motive था इंडिया में आत्मनिर्भर करना है, तो एटॉमिक एनर्जी इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट,
चाहिए।
राइट? तो उस टाइम तो था नहीं, राइट? सो नेहरू डिडंट हैव मनी, राइट? तो कुछ था नहीं इंडिया के पास, बट फिर भी उन्होंने किया ना। तो वही वही सैक्रिफाइस
So
चाहिए
basically
अब।
bled. They bled for it. They didn't
They
wait for
bled.
somebody to do
See,
it for
that's the
them.
thing, right? We need people who can bleed, right? We
Yeah.
need sacrifice, right?
Beautiful.
So Vikram Sarabhai, you see the amount of coming from such a rich family, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he would have run his father's textile company, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what not he has done for the country, right?
And I think this is what
So
Swami Vivekananda used to say, कि we need people
yes,
who can really
yes,
die in the service of the country because that is
that's
required
it.
right now.
That's it. Right? See, in Upanishad there is this line, "Ten tena tyaktena bhunjita," which means we rejoice with what has been sacrificed. So in management there is a little, I mean, like paraphrase of this, which we call postpone gratification, right? So you do something, you sacrifice something actually for a gratification which comes late, right? So I mean, see everywhere. So Tata hai because of this thing, right? They have sacrificed so many things, right? I mean, you might say that no, they're businessmen, but setting up steel plant was a sacrifice. Setting of ISC Bangalore was big sacrifice that Jamshedji fought for throughout his life. He died fighting for that. Okay, he didn't die fighting for that. He died before his this vision was fulfilled, right? Did power plant, Bombay में power plant लगा रहे. The first power plant, hydel power plant in India was made by the Tatas, right? And it was envisaged by Jamshedji Tata, right? Even the Birlas, right? Sort of they did, like these industrial houses also, right? They did a lot of nationalistic thing, right? I mean, they sacrificed, right? And sacrifice किया है. That's the reason they have so much money now. So people think that sacrifice करने बेवकूफ है, business में sacrifice नहीं करने चाहिए. But वही business 100 साल टिकता है, वही business ही बहुत पैसा बनाता है जो sacrifice भी करता है.
With this amazing insight, Sudipto, we have concluded, we have come to the end. I really hope that people take away the real spirit of JC Bose. They understand the difficulties that we still face and how we can, create a very good ecosystem of science, but only if we are willing to sacrifice, only if we really want greatness to happen.
Yes.
And I hope
that's
you
the reason,
enjoyed the
I mentioned, right? I mentioned, the one of the inspiration of this thing is again this anthology of poetical katha, right? So Tagore, like he wrote this book because again he felt that sacrifice and love, again love for the country, right? It's not only love for your lover, right? You are, first of all, if you love your country and if you sacrifice, that country is unbeatable. So Americans loved their country, right? Yeah. America हुआ है because of lot of sacrifices from lot of people, right? वो लोगों को दिखता नहीं है. लोग लगते हैं कि आज वो दादा बन के बैठे हैं, पर एक दिन में नहीं बने वो sacrifice हमने नहीं किए. People also get some pointers to think. People also get to think, right? And बस कुछ नहीं, मतलब see, I feel good if people read my book, not because of the fact that I'll get royalty. Royalty is minuscule. That doesn't matter to me. Yeah. But I will feel happy if people get some message out of the book, right? I mean, if people also get inspired, not by me, but by the book, by the content of the book, right?
Yeah.